Why would you want to use DBWriter? DBWriter is an application development tool that allows you to take a MySQL type database and turn it into a robust REBL application. There are two main benefits to using DBWriter. The first being the speed and ease of development. The second being the breadth of customization that is allowed within the DBWriter environment. To illustrate these two benefits, I will demonstrate the creation of a small application within DBWriter. The application will be called Contacts. Our application starts with a database called Contacts, which consists of three tables: the company table, the address table, and the person table. In these next few illustrations, we will look at the relationship between the tables. The company table has three columns that are linked to two different tables. The main contact column links to the person table. The bill address and the ship address link to the address table. And the person table has a column called address that is linked to the address table. Now we will move on to the actual creation of the contacts database and then the creation of the DBWriter application. In this example, we're going to use the MySQL Workbench to create our contacts application. In this case, we're creating a contacts database. And within this database, we're going to create three tables. First one will be the company table. Every table has to have an ID in it in order for it to work in DBWriter, and the auto increment field has to be turned on. We have the name of the company. We have the main contact, which is a link to another table, so it's an integer. We have a bill address, which is a link to another table, so that's an integer as well. And the ship address, which is also an integer. Apply that. Create another table, the address table. Again, it has an ID. The auto increment is on. City, province, postal code. That table's pretty straightforward. Person table will be the third table we make. The address in this table needs to be an integer because it's a link to the address table. Email and phone numbers are just straight varchar fields. And we're done. Okay, now that we have our database created, we can open it up in DBWriter. So we can see we have our three tables there. There's nothing in any of them, obviously. So we're going to add some information in here. I'll hit escape to close this window and an F5 to refresh this query. We'll go over to the address table, add in a fake address. I'll hit escape again to close this and F5 to refresh this. And now we have data In two of our tables, we'll need to add a person. Let's add Joe. And we'll give him an email address. Again, I'll hit escape and F5 to refresh our table here. So now that we have our initial setup done here, we're going to create some relationships between these tables. In this case, we're going to create these links between the tables as we illustrated earlier. So the company table here has a field named main contact that's linked to the person table. So we're going to create those in the relationship editor here. So the company table is here. The source field will be main contact. The target table will be the person table. Target field will be ID, which is what all of these number indicators are on the left. They're an ID field. Human readable target fields will be first name and last name. And our requester prompt for this particular field will be select a person. We'll move on to the next link between the company table and the bill address. So in this case, our source table is the company table. Source field is the bill address. I'm going to take that. The target table here is, the target table is the address table. Target field is the ID field again. And our human readable fields will be street and city. And then we'll select our prompt. Save that. We'll move on to the next link that we have between the company table, ship address, and the address table. Now this is almost identical to the bill address, so all we need to do is go in there, change this to ship address, and save that entry because they're identical. Our fourth link is between the person table and the address table. So here again, our source table is person. The source field is address. Target table is the address table. Target field again is ID. Human readable fields will be street and city. And we'll select our requester. Select an address again. So now we have our 4 links created between our 3 tables. Now, because we've created these relationships between the 3 tables, if we open up one of these records, we'll notice that there are some active buttons now on the fields where we've created links. In this case, the person table has a field called address that's linked to the address table. So if I click on this assist button, it gives me a list of all the addresses available in that table, lets me select it, and it puts the data in there for me automatically. Same is true for the company table, the main contact, so I can select from my list of people or persons in that table. We'll set the bill address and the shipping address to the same here. Now if we rerun these queries, we'll notice that we're seeing computer readable data, not human readable. So in order to update this, we can refresh the layout to its default. The default meaning that we'd rather see human data than computer data. And here it updates our listing layout for us. And also the same is true of the company table. These values mean very little, if anything, to us. So I'm going to refresh the layout on that one as well. And we get a full human readable view of our tables now. So at this point we have basic access to the database that we've created. You can query the different tables using the query interface here. This has been touched on in the Getting Started video. And you can edit the various records through the Edit Record window here. Developing and customizing your DB Writer application takes place in various areas. Right now I'll just show you a couple. If I add another address to my address table like this, I quickly realize that I'm typing in the city of Calgary and the province of Alberta over and over again when most of my addresses will be in the city of Calgary. So to avoid typing in the city and province every time, I can modify what is called the field actions script for this table. Here it is here. It provides me with various customizations to the edit record window and how it interacts with the data in the tables. So in this case I'm going to modify the on new record code block to automatically insert the proper city and the proper province in those fields for me. So that I don't have to add them in ever again. So in this case, if I refresh my activities on this address field, when I create a new record, it'll automatically put in Calgary and Alberta in there for me, and I don't have to do that. And if I wish to change them, I can at any time in the future. Now to make a slightly more complicated modification to the database, I'm going to go over to the person table, and I realize that there's a flaw in the design of this table because I want each person to be associated with a company. So in this case I'm going to go over to the MySQL Workbench and make a modification to the database. So I'm going to fire up MySQL Workbench again and modify the person table. And what we'll do is we'll add another called the company field, and because it's a link, we're going to create another integer, and we're actually going to move that field up where we think it's appropriate, probably after the last name, and we're going to apply that to our database. And then we'll go back to DB Writer, close it down, start it up again, and if we open up our person table now, we'll notice that there's now a company field in there. Now that company field needs to be linked to the company table, so we'll do that again here. So in the person table we have the company field, which is linked to the company table, and we're going to select the company name and give it the prompt here. And now we've created a link between the person table and the company table. We just need to refresh this, and now it shows up here for us. And we could say, let's make him part of Acme Construction. So just to complete this part of the demonstration, if we go back to our query here, we'll notice that the company field isn't showing up anywhere. So we need to do another reset to default to pull that in here. And you'll notice that we've got the human readable data in there, and if we want to add Joe Blow, give him a company, we'll say Stellar Invoicing. track on that, we'll notice that Stellar Invoicing is put in there, and it shows up in our listing layout. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of what DB Writer is capable of. There are a lot more features in it, mainly the reports and the different kinds of ways to move through your work efficiently. But for now, this should give you a good flavor for what it can do.